when you're overwhelmed, everything's red, everything's orange. There's stress, there's all these bad cortisol levels in your body that kind of keep you up at night. But when you're able to focus and you have a mentor that says, I know where you've been, I know where you're going to head, just focus on this one thing, you can reduce your anxiety. This story being a fable of a mentor teaching a young business owner, that mentor has shown up as multiple people in my life. I wanted to kind of combine all these characters into this book, and I thought the fable was the best way to kind of teach some of these lessons.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, I'm really excited for today's guest, Dr. Addison Killeen, a Nebraska dentist, author, speaker, podcaster, and business coach. And we're talking about his new book, The Shift, a leadership fable on the transition from overwhelm to focus. Fascinating conversation. But before I introduce Addison, a reminder that we'd love to hear from you. If you have a comment or question, send me a voice message and we'll feature your question on an upcoming episode. Just grab your phone, record a comment or question, and send it to me via email at this address, thedanparsonsshow@gmail.com. We'd love to feature your question or comment on an upcoming episode. Okay, here's my interview with Dr. Addison Killeen. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome for his inaugural visit to the Dan Parsons Show, Dr. Addison Killeen.
Hey.
Dr. Addison, welcome aboard, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Addison is a practicing dentist, author, speaker, podcaster, and business coach. He's owned 8 dental practices and also currently owns a growing startup in Lincoln, Nebraska. Prior to the dental field, he was a numbers guy. I like that. For a large conglomerate, he's traveled the world to provide dental care to the poor and underserved. He's also the co-founder of the Dental Success Network, a private dentist-only software that provides coaching, continuing ed, team training, and vendor supply savings. Addison is announcing the reason of this podcast, other than get to know you a little bit better, for our audience too, is he's announcing his latest book, The Shift, a leadership fable of the transition from overwhelm to focus. So all of that, Addison, did I get most of that right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty nauseating when you read the whole list, but I appreciate it.
Well, you've done a lot in a short time, and I did. We've known each other for a while now, and I've watched your success as an author, as a podcaster, and a business owner. And I'm just fascinated with this new book you got out. So we'll get to that, but maybe let's just talk a little bit about this path of your career, because it's not a straight line, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always been a Lincolnite, born and raised here, and I love Lincoln, Nebraska. I tell you, I've gotten the chance to see a lot of different towns, and I lived in St. Louis for a few years. And, for just so many different reasons, this place is just the place I wanted to come back to and raise a family. And so I love it. But yeah, when I was younger, I had all the jobs. I worked at Dairy Queen. I worked at Laszlo's as a host. And then, in the Laszlo's world, I rose up to do spreadsheets. And it was truly an MBA without getting any title. Getting to work with really, really smart people, and answer interesting questions, like how much energy does it take to cool down thousands of gallons of beer when you need to cool it down really quickly, and, trying to figure out a better way to do that. The folks down there at Laszlo's and Empyrean Brewing Company are just really, really forward thinkers. So I got to just answer really fun questions. But then I always knew I wanted to be in the medical and primarily in the dental field. And so I said, this is really fun. but I want to use my hands and do good work. And so I went to dental school. And after dental school, you see these pictures of success from people that, this was a time, around 2010, 2015, when the emergence of these multiple practice locations or multiple locations kind of came up. And it's like, well, maybe I should chase, that path and try to grow a large organization.
So the
And,
industry was changing at that point, and you saw the opportunity.
yeah, it was becoming kind of the next big wave of like, oh, this is something new we should try. And so I got caught up in that and, in essence, learned a lot of lessons. And it was trial by fire. I stepped in a lot of potholes that I could have avoided if I had just surrounded myself with better mentors. And so after doing that for a number of years and just kind of seeing the writing on the wall that maybe this wasn't actually the next big wave, I exited that business and basically co-founded what's called the Dental Success Network, which is a software platform where we connect mentors and licensed dentists from all around the world, both clinically, but also practice management, accounting, HR, leadership, everything that a mom and pop dentist or even anyone in kind of business should have. It's your own kind of mentor circle of, well, when I need help, who do I go to for this question or this answer particularly? So the Dental Success Network has been a passion project for the past 6 years. But through that, I get a lot of questions about different things. And I started saying, well, the best format for me to answer these questions is to write books, so that I can put down my most thorough, thoughtful answers to the huge questions facing specifically dentists, but even, it's the same almost applies to veterinarians, chiropractors, a bakery owner type thing. It's like a lot of business owners have the exact same questions. It's just a little bit different flavor of the answer.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I love writing books because it allows me to be a little asynchronous with my time. I've got 3 little boys at home. And so I can wake up and I do it about 4:45 in the morning. I can get a lot of work done. I can write. I can do some of my work early in the morning. But then I get to pass that off into the world later on through the books. And it's just kind of saving family time while also helping and mentoring people.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that early in your career, maybe you didn't, for whatever reason, didn't have that mentorship. And so, again, you're filling that need and you're providing this network. Maybe give our audience, if you don't mind, a sense of the scope of that network across the country and that you've built in just 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, we have about 1,700 members now.
Wow.
And it's filling a niche that is needed because a lot of dentists it's the one doctor in the practice with about 7 employees, working about 36 hours a week clinically on patients, and then maybe another 5 to 10 hours on the business after that.
Yeah.
And so it's those sorts of folks that are really trying to figure their way out through all these, the transition and the changing times
Yep.
and different economies. So yeah, it's a great service for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that process, you've written a number of books to help that clientele, right?
Yeah, so we have these manuals that are about anywhere 250 to 300 pages long of addressing different issues, whether it's systemization in your practice, buying a practice, starting a practice, just some of these big, really complex topics that we go through the whole, the economics of different things, how to just do it the best way, but also address a lot of the questions and quite honestly, the problems that I've seen by both, making the mistakes myself, as well as through coaching, hundreds and hundreds of these dentists as they kind of ask me questions. I get to learn their situation and learn what's worked and as well what's not worked so well.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, before we should have done this at the top of the show, Addison. Obviously, you get to do some other extreme sports and adventures. You want to tell us about the extreme sporting adventure that's appearing on your eyeball?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love doing endurance gravel bike racing. And so, obviously gravel roads are plentiful around here in eastern Nebraska. The grid system, it just allows you to ride whenever you want to ride. But a couple years ago, I bought an old boat, a pontoon boat. We call it the raccoon pontoon because it
Nice.
looked like I bought it from a raccoon. Well, I was, a dentist is kind of a fixer. We're fixing teeth, but also we have a lot of equipment. So if something's going wrong, I'm going to try to fix it myself. Well, the boat got the better of me as I was trying to fix it last weekend. And so that gave me a shiner and, yeah, kind of crunched my head a little bit. But so far, it's everything's healing up, and I'm not trying to win any beauty awards. I've got a lovely
Hey,
wife, so I'm
hey,
good.
hey. Well, and it's a little plug for those of you who are audio listeners, and I know there's a lot of you out there, but there's also a lot of folks who enjoy the YouTube. So if you're listening to this, hop on over to the YouTube channel and see Dr. Addison's shiner. So anyway,
Yeah.
so the boat's fixed. Is it in better
The
shape
boat is
now?
fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Finally got it working again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I want to read this forward, excerpts from the forward from your new book, and remind me who the author was of the forward. I'm sorry, I didn't make a note.
Dr. Jason Tenuri, one of my best friends and a practicing dentist out in New York.
Excellent, excellent. Here's what Dr. Jason says. Addison's decision to present this message as a fable is brilliant. Stories have a unique way of captivating us, holding our attention while gently revealing lessons that resonate on a deeply personal level. He goes on to write, in these pages, Addison has crafted a classic hero's journey that small business owners and anyone striving for growth and balance will see themselves in. So I just thought that was a really good summary of what you've done with this book, Addison. So, how did you decide on this format?
Well, I've written thousands of pages of normal nuts and bolts type things. But as I look to other authors, sometimes you need projects that challenge you and kind of make you think differently. And I thought the next, hurdle for me to improve my own skills was to write a story, fiction, I guess, or a fable that would make you have to kind of weave character, so character development, weave a plot line, um, make sure you're kind of sprinkling things throughout that kind of come to fruition at the end. Just all the layers of things that you had to study in high school English that I thought this isn't going to be important to me. I'm never going to be a writer, and my high school English teacher would probably agree with that. But when you have to do a project and train yourself on something new, it just expands your vocabulary and your skill set. And so I wanted to kind of tackle something new. Um, you know, Nobody goes into writing to make money. It's more to pass on ideas and kind of just share knowledge or tell a good story, create some sort of entertainment. And this story is both entertaining as well as powerful. And I think when I go back to some of the books that impacted me most, I'm just thinking of, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Dan Millman taught his, life lessons through some characters, and he always leaves it a little bit, quasi questionable as to, well, was that character real? And he says, well, he was real. He showed up in multiple different people in my life. And, and so, this story being a fable of a mentor teaching a young business owner, that mentor has shown up as multiple people in my life. And, it's if those people read this book, they will see themselves in certain positions. But it's also the mentors that we both, have physically met and that, whether we have coffee with them or they coach us, but it's also the people that we have read and that mentor us through the information they share out into the world or social media or, popular figures, like the Pope or, the Dalai Lama or people that are just putting positivity out in the world. Like we can gain mentors in any shape or form. It's not necessarily the people that are in your physical circle or in your city. And so that's kind of what I wanted to kind of combine all these characters into this book. And And I thought the fable was the best way to kind of teach some of these lessons.
That's fascinating. I really respect. I've got a journalism background. That's what I studied in college, and I guess I am a bit of a journalist now with my own podcast. But I've spent my career relying on others to tell my client stories, and so I always admire, because I've always thought that I can write you a damn news release in 5 seconds, but to do what you've done. I've always wondered what that would be like. And I've had other friends who maybe, Kevin Shin, who's a chef and author here in town. You probably know Kevin. He was not a writer. He wasn't trained as a writer. He was a youth pastor that became a chef and a business owner. But he has, like you, developed this passion for communicating through the written word. And so I just really admire that. And especially going from more of a technical books and how-to books to this book of fiction to tell the story. So I really admire that. That's again, I think that shows your entrepreneurial spirit, that you're not afraid to tackle fixing a pontoon boat or your writing skills. So that's,
it's been a totally different journey, and quite honestly, much harder than I expected. I mean, it took about 2 years to fully get this book to the finish line. And the manuscript has been mostly done for 6-8 months now. But then, you pass it off to a publisher that wants to take your book, and the publisher rips it to shreds and it comes back much better.
Yep.
But, it's just the process of, you take a lump of coal, and through pressure and time, it makes it better and better until it becomes a diamond. And so, I think now it's really good. It's always interesting when in the position of being an author and you put this product out into the world, you're passing your kid. It's like pushing your kid out of the house when they're 18. You don't get to pull them back in. I mean, once it's out there, it gets to live its life, and it's really fun. I mean, it's getting a lot of positive praise. We've had some really big names, including, Dr. Tom Osborne wrote about the power of, this book showing the impact that a mentor can have. But also business leaders like Lee Cockrell, the former executive vice president of Walt Disney World, and then other, huge authors in the business world that have just spoken very highly of this book. So that's pretty cool. So it's good to know it will hopefully have a big impact. But you never know, you push it out. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Let me just read a little bit excerpt from your introduction of the book. You write, "It's through coaching that I've found business owners and leaders who are dejected, worn out, and depressed. If this resonates with you, I understand. I've been there. I purchased one of my dental practices after the previous owner had made a haphazard exit. There were no systems. The culture was toxic. Team members were leaving left and right, and for good reason. When I came in, my initial role was to stabilize the practice before merging it into another clinic. And then despite years of successful coaching and transforming several clinics, the 6 months of systematizing and reworking that this clinic needed pushed me to the limits." So you've lived it.
Yeah. And that's after, coaching hundreds of dentists. It's one thing to know all the systems and to be a coach, and it's another thing to be a coach in the trenches with the people you're coaching. And so partially, like I always knew that we would come out the other end and just had to go through this rebirth, the phoenix that lights up in fire and comes back in the ashes. But, I've seen this happen so many times with other business owners who consistently reach out to me. And I mean, that's the wonderful thing about having a huge network like we do in the Dental Success Network, is that I hear these stories and I'm coaching them through the exact same thing. And so I know things will get better. But sometimes if you don't have that support network, or you don't have that mentor, or you don't know what your next most important task is, it gets really difficult. And so, people, they get overwhelmed by having too many things on their to-do list. So that's kind of the subtitle of the book is when you're overwhelmed, you don't know. Everything's red, everything's orange. There's stress, there's, chronic stress and all these bad cortisol levels in your body that kind of keep
Yeah.
you up at night.
Yeah.
But when you're able to focus and you have a mentor that says, I know where you've been, I know where you're going to head, where you're going, just focus on this one thing first, and then let's go to the next thing. When you have that focus, you can reduce your anxiety. And business owners, from a restaurant owner to a dentist to a veterinarian, like small business owners have it really tough some days. And being able to focus on, okay, where should I put my energy? Because small business owners spend 80 hours a week on their business. It's that little thing in the back of their head that's like always there. They could be watching a movie with their kids, but they're thinking about their, inventory level. And so by, having a little support network and the ability to bring focus for these people to kind of show them the path forward, is super powerful and hopefully helps business owners and leaders in any organization.
One of the things I've admired about you, Addison, and I know others do too, is, and I'm sure this is part of your coaching and your philosophy because you live it, and that's finding that work-family balance. And I think the people who know you best know that you strive to do that. None of us are perfect. Back in the days when I was growing a business and growing a family, I did not have a mentor like Addison to help me through some of those steps. So what's that been like as somebody who has walked that walk to be able to find that work-life balance?
Well, it's trying to know that you have periods in your life. You have seasons of your life. And writing a fable, of course, there's seasons in the book that translate to the seasons of the business. But the seasonality, right now, I have young kids at home. And so I'm going to prioritize time at home with the young kids. Now, granted, I still work 40 to 45 hours a week, but I don't go over that. And, when it comes to the end of the week on a Friday afternoon, I get my stuff done and then I go spend time with my kids. If I get an hour or two of work in on a Saturday or Sunday morning between 4 and 6 a.m., that's great. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. It's finding the seasons, because at a certain point, my kids will be out of the house. And then if I wanted to spend 55 hours, 60 hours a week on the business, I could. But just knowing that the goal, you need to be looking at what the goal is. And the goals for me, I write on a note card, I keep them in my back pocket so that I literally sit on my ideas every day. And the goal is so that when my kids are in their 30s and they have kids, that they want to come back for dinner. That's what, you want to be able to say, well, you want to hang out with me, And so I think that's the goal in every interaction I have with my kids, but also why it's so important at this stage to have a really good relationship and spend time to have joint activities together, things that we can find that are, both bring me joy, but also bring them joy, whether that's playing sports or just playing Uno or reading a book together on the couch, something that is going to have a connection point so that when they're older, they're going to be able to say, well, I used to do this with my dad. And I think that's kind of what we want as parents, is for our kids to want to be in our lives and want us to be in their lives when they kind of start getting their own lives later on.
Well, I admire that. What I admire about that, Addison, is understanding that in the moment. It's easy for someone my age to look back and say, yeah, I guess I kind of did this, and I guess I kind of had that attitude, but I don't think I ever had that clarity at your age when I was in the middle of it to be able to articulate that. So, and then on the other end of that, as we age, I love this quote, the title of one of the chapters in your book by the famous poet Maya Angelou. She wrote, "As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others." And so again, I commend you for understanding that phase of our lives as we grow older and think about those business owners thinking of succession or thinking of selling the practice or whatever. There's also that component to your clients, I suspect, as well.
Well, and I think it kind of speaks to what I read from author David Brooks a couple years ago when he wrote about the second mountain. David is an amazing author. He's written about how when we're younger, we're so focused on personal success, and whether that's wealth or building up our skills or our inventions or, climbing the hierarchical status, symbols and gaining those things. But then as we age, we realize there's a second mountain to climb, and that's helping others. And so, I think that's one of the things that this book hopefully teaches is that second mountain doesn't necessarily have to be only for older folks. You can still be young, but there's people that are, whether it's a high schooler that you could be in your 20s or 30s, but if you joined a mentorship program and spent 1 hour a week with a high schooler, that could be your second mountain happening today. And so, there's a quote from Pope Francis that is actually used in the book, spoken through the words of the mentor, Jack. And Jack says, a tree does not lend shade to itself. A river does not drink its own water. It is there for others. And so that's something that, we just need to think about as we gain wisdom and experience and life skills. We can always pass that on. For me, it could be like I like fixing my bike because I sometimes have to do it in the middle of the night on a gravel road. But I could also, volunteer at the Lincoln Bike Kitchen and fix up bikes for kids. So, there's so many skills that you don't necessarily have to be the typical older individual that's, been there, done that to help out in your community.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. Well, Addison, I'm thrilled to be able to have this interview. I'm thrilled to be able to help introduce this book to our audience and to the broader audience out there. So we're doing the kickoff. And so tell our audience where they can find this book.
Yeah, so it's available on barnesandnoble.com, on amazon.com, anywhere books are sold. And if you wanted to learn more about me or find links to the books, it's AddisonKilleen.com. And you can just learn a little bit more about my story and find the book wherever you find books.
Nice. And you'll be doing some events, some book signings and such that I'm sure we'll be announcing. And so look for those. We'll keep our audience informed of that. And thanks for spending some time with us. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Dr. Addison Killeen, The Shift, a leadership fable of the transition from overwhelm to focus. All right, Addison, thanks, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Addison. Dr. Killeen will hold an official launch and signing event about his book on Thursday, August 21st from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Francie Finch Bookstore in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. I love that bookstore. Come join us. The event will include a Q&A session with Addison, interviewed by me. No RSVP is required. Just bring a friend and your curiosity. I guarantee we'll have some fun. Hey, thanks to our great team here at Parsons who made this show possible. Chase Porter, our executive producer. Ike Samanis, producer and graphic design. Penology, Tech Solutions, for their technical help and equipment. And Kim Remington, Parsons PR's Director of Operations. And my personal thanks to each of you for tuning in and supporting Nebraska's #1 political podcast. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We couldn't do this without you. Okay, that's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.